At 9,000 meters, both engines died. The plane started falling from the sky with no power. Everyone thought they would crash. Then 2 fighter jets arrived and heard something impossible on the radio. A child's voice gave perfect instructions to save the plane. Nobody expected help to come from an 11-year-old passenger with a legendary military name. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The morning sun shined bright over Denver Airport. People walked through the busy terminal with their bags and coffee cups. Gate 14 was full of passengers waiting to board Flight 429 to Seattle. Among the crowd stood a small girl. Her name was Lily Chen. She was only 11 years old. She had black hair tied in 2 braids. She wore blue jeans, red sneakers, and a yellow jacket. On her back was a small green backpack with airplane stickers all over it. To everyone around her, Lily looked like any normal kid traveling alone. Nobody knew the secret she carried. The gate agent smiled at her. "Hello, sweetie. You're in seat 12A. That's a window seat. The flight crew will take good care of you." "Thank you, ma'am," Lily said politely. She walked down the jet bridge and entered the plane. She found her seat and put her backpack under the seat in front of her. Then she sat down and looked out the window at the ground crew working below. Inside her backpack was something special. A small metal pin with wings on it. And a call sign that meant everything in the military world. The call sign was Hawk. Lily's family had a long history with flying. Her great-grandfather flew bomber planes in World War II. Her grandfather flew helicopters in the Vietnam War. Her father was an F-16 fighter pilot. Her mother was a flight instructor for the Navy. All of them carried the Hawk call sign through their careers. But Lily earned it herself when she was just 9 years old. 2 years ago, Lily was at an air show with her parents. A small plane was doing tricks in the sky when suddenly something went wrong. Black smoke came from the engine. The pilot's voice on the radio sounded scared and confused. People on the ground started panicking. Nobody knew what to do. Lily picked up a radio that was sitting on a table. She pressed the button and spoke clearly. "Pilot, this is ground support. Cut your engine power to idle. Turn left 20 degrees. You have a clear field at your 2 o'clock position. Begin your descent now." Her voice was calm. Her words were exact. She sounded like she had done this 100 times before. The pilot followed every instruction she gave. He turned left. He reduced power. He aimed for the empty field. The plane came down smoothly and landed safely in the grass. No fire. No crash. Everyone was safe. The crowd stood in shock. A 9-year-old girl had just talked a pilot through an emergency landing. Air Force officers came running over. They asked her how she knew what to do. Lily explained that she had been learning about flying since she was 5 years old. Her parents taught her. She studied flight manuals like other kids studied comic books. She knew emergency procedures by heart. 1 week later, there was a special ceremony. 3 Air Force generals came to her school. In front of all the students and teachers, they gave Lily the Hawk call sign. They pinned the wings on her jacket. Fighter pilots saluted her. From that day forward, Lily was Hawk. Every military pilot who heard that name knew what it meant. It meant courage. It meant skill. It meant someone who stays calm when everything goes wrong. A flight attendant named Maria walked down the aisle checking on passengers. She was in her 40s with kind eyes and a warm smile. She had been working on planes for 15 years. When she reached row 12, she saw Lily sitting by the window. "Hi there, honey," Maria said. "I'm Maria. What's your name?" "I'm Lily," the girl answered. "I'm going to Seattle to visit my aunt for 2 weeks." "That sounds wonderful. If you need anything during the flight, just press this button right here. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Maria moved on to check other passengers. A businessman sat down in seat 12B next to Lily. He opened his laptop and started typing. Across the aisle, an old man read a newspaper. Behind them, a young mother held a baby. The plane filled up quickly. Soon all 156 passengers were seated. The flight attendants did their safety demonstration. Then the captain's voice came over the speakers. Good morning, everyone. This is Captain David Miller. We'll be flying at 9,000 meters today. Flight time to Seattle will be about 2 hours and 30 minutes. Weather looks perfect. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your flight. The plane started moving away from the gate. It rolled slowly toward the runway. Then it turned and stopped. The engines got louder. The plane began to move faster and faster. Soon it lifted off the ground and climbed into the blue sky. Everything was normal. Everything was peaceful. Maria brought Lily a cup of apple juice and some cookies. Here you go, sweetie, she said with a wink. Lily thanked her and looked out the window. She could see the Rocky Mountains below. They looked small from up here. The sky was clear and bright. It was a beautiful morning for flying. She didn't know that in just a few minutes, everything would change forever. The plane climbed higher and higher. It passed through some clouds and came out into bright sunshine. The seatbelt sign turned off. People started reading books, watching movies on their phones, and talking quietly. Lily was looking at a book about different types of aircraft when she heard it. A strange sound. Like a cough. It came from outside the plane. Then the plane shook. Just a little bit. But Lily noticed it right away. In the cockpit, Captain Miller and his co-pilot, Lisa Park, saw red lights flash on their control panel. Engine 1 is showing problems, Park said. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls. Oil pressure is dropping. Temperature is rising. Miller's hands gripped the controls. He looked at the screens in front of him. Engine number 1 was failing. Start the shutdown procedure for engine 1, he said. We'll fly on engine 2. Notify air traffic control. Park began pressing buttons. Engine 1 is shutting down. We still have full power on engine 2. We should be fine. Miller nodded. He picked up the radio. Denver Control, this is United Flight 429. We have shut down engine 1 due to mechanical problems. We are requesting permission to return to Denver Airport. Flight 429, permission granted, the controller replied. Turn to heading 270. Descend to 7,000 meters. Emergency crews will be ready when you land. The plane began to turn. Everything seemed under control. One engine was enough to fly safely. They had trained for this situation many times. Miller pressed the button to speak to the passengers. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We've had a small problem with one of our engines, so we've shut it down as a safety measure. We have another engine working perfectly, and we're going to return to Denver. There's no danger. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. People looked at each other nervously. Some grabbed their arm rests. But most stayed calm. The flight attendants walked through the cabin with reassuring smiles. Maria stopped by Lily's seat. Don't worry, honey. This happens sometimes. We'll be back on the ground soon. Lily nodded. But she was listening carefully to the sounds of the plane. Something felt wrong. She couldn't explain it, but something didn't sound right. Then it happened. The second engine exploded. The plane shook violently. Luggage fell from the overhead bins. People screamed. The businessman's laptop flew off his tray table. The baby started crying. And then everything became terribly quiet. Both engines were dead. Completely silent. The only sound was the wind rushing past the plane. The plane was gliding now. It was falling slowly through the sky with no power at all. In the cockpit, Miller and Park stared at their screens in horror. Every warning light was red. Both engines showed zero power. Zero fuel flow. Zero thrust. "Mayday, mayday, mayday," Miller said into the radio. His voice was steady, but his heart was racing. "This is United Flight 429. We have complete engine failure. Both engines are dead. We are at 9,000 meters, approximately 80 kilometers west of Denver. We need immediate assistance." Park was already doing math in her head. "We can glide for maybe 18 minutes, she said. We might cover about 160 kilometers before we hit the ground." Miller pulled up maps on his screen. They were flying over mountains. There were very few flat areas. The nearest airport was too far away. "We need to find somewhere to land," he said. "Look for any flat ground. Fields, roads, anything." His hands moved over the controls, trying to keep the plane level and stable. Without engines, they had very limited control. They were basically flying a giant glider. In the passenger cabin, panic had taken over. People were crying. Some were praying. Others were sending text messages to their families, saying goodbye. The businessman next to Lily was shaking. His face had gone white. "We're going to die," he whispered. "We're going to crash." Maria and the other flight attendants tried to stay calm. They moved through the cabin, checking seat belts and trying to comfort people. But Maria's hands were trembling. She had never been in a situation like this. She knelt down next to Lily. "Honey, I need you to listen carefully. We're having serious problems. But the pilots are doing everything they can. I need you to be brave. Can you do that for me?" Lily looked at Maria. The flight attendant expected to see fear in the girl's eyes. But instead, she saw something different. Lily looked focused. Alert. Almost professional. "Both engines failed," Lily said quietly. It wasn't a question. It was a fact. Maria's heart stopped for a second. How did this child know that? Before she could answer, Captain Miller's voice came over the speakers again. This time, he couldn't hide the fear in his voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We have experienced complete engine failure. Both engines have stopped working. We are currently gliding and looking for a safe place to land. We have declared an emergency. Please follow all instructions from the flight attendants. Stay calm and prepare for an emergency landing." The cabin erupted in screams and sobs. High above the failing airliner, two F-22 Raptor fighter jets were flying their regular patrol. The pilots were Major Tom Harrison and Captain Sarah "Viper" Williams. They were experienced military pilots who had flown hundreds of missions. When they heard the Mayday call from Flight 429, they immediately responded. "Control, this is Raptor 1, Harrison said into his radio. "We heard the emergency call. Request permission to intercept and provide assistance." "Raptor 1, permission granted," the controller answered. "Flight 429 has lost both engines and is gliding. They need all the help they can get." Both F-22s turned sharply and accelerated toward the civilian plane. Their powerful engines pushed them forward at incredible speed. Harrison pulled up information about Flight 429 on his computer screen. He could see passenger names, crew information, everything. Then he saw something that made him freeze. "Viper," he said to Williams. "Look at passenger seat 12A. There's a military call sign listed." Williams checked her screen. Her eyes went wide. "Hawk," she whispered. "That's the Hawk call sign. The 3-generation legacy. The air show rescue from 2 years ago. Harrison felt chills run down his spine. He had heard about the Hawk legacy. He had seen the video of a 9-year-old girl calmly talking a pilot through an emergency landing. He had heard generals say she was extraordinary. And now that same girl was on a plane falling from the sky with no engines. "Control," Harrison said. "Can you confirm the identity of passenger Hawk on Flight 429? Several seconds passed while the controller checked. "Raptor 1, confirmation is positive. Passenger is Lily Chen, age 11, traveling alone. The call sign is verified and active." Harrison and Williams looked at each other through their canopies. They both understood what this meant. The F-22s reached Flight 429 quickly. Harrison flew close to the civilian plane's right side. He could see both engines clearly. They were completely still. No heat signature. No movement. Just dead metal. He pressed his radio button. "United 429, this is Raptor 1, United States Air Force. We are flying beside you. We can see both engines are dead. We're coordinating with emergency services. We'll stay with you." In the cockpit, Miller felt a wave of gratitude. "Raptor 1, thank you. We're looking for anywhere to land. We're running out of altitude." Park had found 3 possible landing sites on her map. A small airport with a very short runway. A highway that looked too narrow. And a long valley with a flat bottom that might work. "That valley is our best shot," Miller said. "It's about 40 kilometers ahead. We might just make it." Back in the cabin, Lily unbuckled her seat belt. She reached under the seat and pulled out her green backpack. The flight attendants were too busy helping frightened passengers to notice one small girl moving. Lily unzipped her backpack carefully. Inside was a small radio. Her father had given it to her before she left. He told her, "Only use this if lives are in danger and you can help." Lily knew this was that moment. She turned on the radio and tuned it to the emergency frequency that all aircraft monitor. She had memorized it years ago. Her hand was steady as she pressed the button. "United 429 flight crew, this is passenger Hawk in seat 12A. I have emergency aviation training and military family knowledge. I am on this frequency if you need assistance with procedures or coordination with your military escort." Her voice was young, but it was clear and confident. She sounded professional. In the cockpit, Miller and Park stared at each other in shock. A passenger calling herself Hawk. That voice belonged to a child. In the F-22s, Harrison and Williams heard the transmission. Their suspicions were confirmed. Hawk was really on that plane, and she was offering to help. Harrison immediately called his controller. "Control, Raptor 1. Hawk is active. She has made contact with the emergency aircraft. Recommend we support any guidance she provides." Miller made a quick decision. They were running out of time and altitude. If this girl really had the knowledge she claimed, he would be foolish not to listen. He pressed his radio. "Hawk, this is United 429 Captain Miller. Do you really have emergency aviation knowledge? We're gliding with no power. All restart attempts have failed. We're passing through 8,000 meters now." Lily's response came immediately. "Captain Miller, I have 3 generations of military aviation family knowledge. I received official recognition for emergency procedures 2 years ago. I can help with glide calculations and coordination with your military escort to reach the best landing site." Park pulled up the passenger list on her screen. She found seat 12A. Her eyes went wide when she saw the notes about the Hawk call sign and the air show incident. She looked at Miller. He looked back at her. They both knew they had to make a choice. Trust an 11-year-old girl, or rely only on themselves. Miller made the decision. "Hawk, this is Captain Miller. We accept your help. Please coordinate with our escorts and give us your recommendations. Lily took a deep breath. She thought about everything her family had taught her. Everything she had learned from a lifetime around aviation. She pressed the button again. All aircraft, Hawk has recommendations. Captain Miller, reduce your air speed to 180 knots. That's the best glide speed for your aircraft type. Increase your angle slightly to get maximum lift with minimum drag. Make all control movements very smooth to reduce drag. Harrison, listening from his F-22, felt deep respect. Every word she said was correct. This was real aviation knowledge, not guessing. He pressed his radio. United 429, Raptor 1 confirms Hawk's recommendations are accurate. The valley ahead is your best option. We're guiding emergency crews there now. You have approximately 15 minutes at your current descent rate. Miller adjusted his controls exactly as Hawk recommended. He felt the plane's glide performance improve immediately. They were getting more distance from every meter of altitude they lost. It's working, Park said with surprise in her voice. We're gliding more efficiently. We might actually make it to that valley. Maria had finally noticed Lily standing in the aisle with a radio in her hands. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. This small girl was talking to the pilots like a professional. Other passengers nearby had noticed too. The businessman in 12B was staring with his mouth open. The old man across the aisle was listening with wide eyes. Is that kid helping fly the plane? Someone whispered. Lily continued giving guidance. Her voice stayed calm and clear. Captain Miller, you should use your remaining altitude for a straight approach to the valley. Don't waste energy turning. The F-22 escorts can guide you to the flattest section using their radar. Harrison immediately began calculating the perfect approach using his fighter's advanced computer systems. United 429, Raptor 1. I'm sending you the exact coordinates for the best landing area. It's a flat section about 2 kilometers long. The surface looks firm. The minutes crawled by slowly. Flight 429 descended steadily. Through the windows, passengers could see mountains getting closer. The valley ahead looked narrow and rough. Some people were crying quietly. Others held hands with strangers. The mother held her baby close. Everyone knew they might not survive. Lily made more recommendations. Small adjustments for wind, when to lower the landing gear, how to balance the need to reduce drag against being ready for landing. Captain Miller, she said. At 600 meters above the valley floor, you should lower your landing gear. It will increase your drag and make you fall faster, but you need to be ready. The surface might be rough. Miller acknowledged. Understood, Hawk. Thank you. Williams, flying higher in her F-22, was coordinating with rescue teams on the ground. Ambulances, fire trucks, and helicopters were racing toward the valley. Harrison watched the civilian plane descend. His heart was pounding. He had seen many emergencies in his career, but this was different. An 11-year-old girl was helping to save 156 people. At 600 meters, Miller lowered the landing gear. The plane shook as the wheels came down. The descent rate increased. They were falling faster now. Park checked all systems one last time. Everything that could be ready was ready. Lily pressed her radio one last time. Captain Miller, remember to flare gently right before you touch down. Pull the nose up slightly to reduce your vertical speed. The surface might be soft. You want to land as smoothly as possible. Keep the wings level during the entire landing. Miller's hands gripped the controls tightly. Understood, Hawk. Thank you for everything. The valley floor rushed up to meet them. The ground filled every window. Passengers held their breath. Some closed their eyes. Others couldn't look away. 200 meters, 100 meters, 50 meters. Miller pulled back on the controls. The plane's nose came up slightly. They were gliding just meters above the ground now. 20 meters. 10 meters. The main wheels touched down. The impact was hard. Much harder than a normal landing. The plane bounced once, then settled. Rocks and dirt hit the bottom of the aircraft. The entire plane shook violently. The nose gear came down. Everyone heard it. The nose gear hit hard but didn't break. The plane was rolling across the valley floor now, throwing up huge clouds of dust. Miller fought to keep the plane straight. The rough ground wanted to push them sideways. His hands moved constantly on the controls. 800 meters. 700 meters. 600 meters. Slower, slower, slower. The rough surface was doing a better job of stopping them than brakes ever could. Finally, after what felt like forever, Flight 429 came to a complete stop. The plane sat at a slight angle on the uneven ground. But it was intact. No fire. No major damage. They were down. They were safe. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The cabin was completely silent. Then Miller pressed the intercom button. His voice was shaking. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the ground. Emergency evacuation begins now. Follow the crew instructions and exit the aircraft quickly." The doors flew open. The emergency slides inflated with loud hissing sounds. Passengers streamed down the slides and ran away from the aircraft across the dusty valley floor. The evacuation was perfect. In less than 3 minutes, all 156 passengers and 6 crew members were safely away from the plane. Maria found Lily as soon as they were clear of the aircraft. The flight attendant's professional calm finally broke. She grabbed Lily in a tight hug, tears streaming down her face. "You saved us," Maria sobbed. "I don't understand how you did it, but you saved every single person on this plane." Lily hugged her back. She felt exhausted. The adrenaline was wearing off. She had done what she needed to do. Everyone was safe. The F-22s made another pass over the landing site. Harrison and Williams wanted to see with their own eyes that everyone had survived. Harrison called his controller. "Control, Raptor 1. United 429 is safely on the ground. All passengers evacuated successfully. Hawk performed magnificently. Request permission to render honors." The controller granted permission immediately. Harrison and Williams brought their F-22s around for one final pass. They flew in tight formation directly over the evacuated passengers, low enough that everyone could see the distinctive fighters clearly. As they passed overhead, both pilots rolled their aircraft. It was a traditional military salute. It was normally done only for fallen warriors or the most distinguished achievements. The passengers looked up. Most didn't understand what they were seeing. But some recognized it as something special. A tribute from elite fighters to someone who had earned their deepest respect. Lily stood with Maria's arm around her shoulders. She watched the F-22s complete their salute and disappear into the blue sky. Tears finally came to her eyes. She had carried the Hawk call sign for 2 years. She had studied and learned everything she could. But she never imagined she would need to use it to save 156 people on a powerless aircraft falling from the sky. Helicopters arrived within minutes. Emergency vehicles drove across the rough terrain to reach them. Medical teams checked every passenger for injuries. Most people had only minor bruises and scratches. A few had twisted ankles from sliding down the evacuation slides. But everyone was alive. Captain Miller walked through the crowd looking for the small girl with black braids. When he found Lily, he knelt down to her level and extended his hand. "Hawk," he said formally. "I'm Captain Miller. I want to thank you personally. Your knowledge and guidance helped save everyone on this aircraft. I will make sure this is documented in my official report." Lily shook his hand with a firm grip, just like her grandfather had taught her. "Captain Miller, I'm honored I could help. You and Captain Park deserve the credit. You brought this plane down safely under impossible conditions." Miller felt emotion catch in his throat. This child should have been thinking about school and friends, not about emergency procedures at 9,000 meters. Park came over and hugged Lily. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for being brave enough to speak up." News helicopters arrived within an hour. The story of the emergency landing spread quickly. But when reporters learned about Lily's involvement, the story exploded. A complete engine failure at cruising altitude. A powerless glide to an emergency landing. F-22 fighter escorts. And most incredibly, an 11-year-old girl with a legendary military call sign who helped coordinate the emergency response. Within days, Lily's face was on news broadcasts around the world. Her story was shared millions of times on social media. People were inspired by the image of a small girl with a green backpack who had the courage and knowledge to save lives. The military aviation community responded with pride. Air Force generals issued official statements praising her actions. Fighter squadrons around the country held ceremonies honoring Hawk. Harrison and Williams were interviewed many times. Both pilots spoke with clear admiration. "Listening to Hawk coordinate those emergency procedures was extraordinary," Harrison said. "She had the professionalism of a veteran pilot. And she's 11 years old." Lily's father flew home from his deployment as soon as he heard the news. When they finally saw each other, they held each other tight. Her father understood what she had experienced. The weight of responsibility, the knowledge that people would die if you failed. He had felt that same pressure in combat. The formal investigation into the engine failure revealed a rare mechanical defect that caused both engines to fail at the same time. It was a 1 in a million combination of problems. The investigation report specifically mentioned Lily Chen. It stated that her coordinated efforts with the flight crew and military escorts contributed significantly to the survival of all souls aboard. It was the first time in aviation history that a child passenger had been officially recognized in an accident investigation for providing expert assistance. The report concluded, "The Hawk call sign once again lived up to its legendary status, rising to meet impossible circumstances and ensuring survival when all expectations suggested disaster." Life slowly returned to normal for Lily. But she would never again be just another kid on an airplane. Several months later, Harrison and Williams requested permission to visit Lily in person. The meeting took place at the Air Force base where her father was stationed. When the two F-22 pilots walked in and saw the 11-year-old girl in jeans and a t-shirt, they felt the disconnect between the image and the memory of that professional voice on the radio. They shook her hand with formal respect. "Hawk," Harrison said. "Viper and I wanted to tell you in person that escorting you during that emergency was one of the most profound experiences of our careers. Hearing your call sign and listening to you perform under pressure reminded us why we do what we do. You honor that call sign in ways that inspire all of us." Lily thanked them. But later, when she watched the two F-22s launch for their return flight, she cried. Not from fear, but from understanding. She was part of something larger than herself. A legacy that went beyond age and rank. The passengers from Flight 429 stayed in touch with Lily over the years. Many sent letters expressing gratitude that words could never fully capture. Maria visited several times, bringing cookies and stories. The two had formed a bond during those desperate minutes when a powerless aircraft glided toward mountains, and an 11-year-old girl had demonstrated that courage and knowledge could overcome any limitation. The businessman from Seat 12B wrote Lily a letter. He apologized for underestimating her. He thanked her for the lesson that extraordinary capability could exist in the most unexpected places. Years later, when Lily became old enough to pursue her own military aviation career, she looked back on that day at 9,000 meters as the moment she truly understood what the Hawk call sign represented. Not just family heritage. Not just honorary recognition. But the living example of rising when circumstances required it. Of finding courage when lives depended on perfect performance under impossible pressure. The story became part of aviation history. It was told and retold in military training rooms and flight schools. It became a lesson about keeping calm, using all available resources, and never underestimating where help might come from. The valley where Flight 429 landed became an unofficial memorial site. Aviation enthusiasts would visit, standing on the spot where an impossible landing had been achieved. Local authorities eventually placed a marker at the site with a simple inscription. On this ground, 156 souls survived the impossible. Courage has no age limit. Lily's story inspired a generation of young people to pursue aviation. Flight schools reported increased enrollment of young students. Many of them cited Lily as their inspiration. If she could help save a plane at 11, one teenager told reporters, then maybe I can learn to fly one. The Hawk call sign, already legendary before that day, became even more revered in military circles. It represented not just a family legacy, but a standard of excellence that went beyond generations. Young pilots entering flight training would hear the story of Flight 429 and understand that carrying any call sign was about more than just a name. It was about being ready when the moment called for it. Lily's father framed the official investigation report that mentioned his daughter. It hung in their home as a reminder that heroism doesn't always come in expected packages. That knowledge passed down through generations has real value. And that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one who will save everyone when disaster strikes. On the 10th anniversary of the emergency landing, a special ceremony was held at the valley. All 156 survivors who were able to attend came back to the place where their lives had been saved. A permanent monument was unveiled. A bronze statue of a hawk with wings spread wide. A plaque listed the names of everyone aboard Flight 429. The inscription read, "On this ground, 156 souls survived the impossible. Through skill, courage, and the timeless truth that heroism knows no age, death was defeated at 9,000 meters." Lily, now 21 and a newly commissioned Air Force officer, stood with her father and grandfather. 3 generations of Hawk aviators together. The legacy that had started with her great-grandfather in World War II had now been carried forward by the youngest Hawk ever to earn the call sign. As the ceremony concluded, 4 F-22 Raptors flew overhead in missing man formation. A tribute to all who served. A reminder of the day when 2 Raptors escorted a falling airliner and heard a kid's call sign that changed everything. The crowd looked up, watching the fighters disappear into the same blue sky that had witnessed a miracle 10 years before. Everyone remembered. Every single survivor knew the same truth. They had been given a second chance at life because an 11-year-old girl with a green backpack had the courage to speak up and the knowledge to save them all. The Hawk had risen. And its legacy would continue to inspire generations yet to come. When Lily was invited to speak at the Air Force Academy years later, she shared the most important lesson she had learned. "When I was 11 years old," she began, her voice steady and clear, "I never imagined I would need to use everything my family had taught me. But when those engines failed at 9,000 meters, I learned the most important lesson of my life." The auditorium full of young cadets listened in complete silence. Knowledge is only valuable if you have the courage to use it when it matters most. My great-grandfather used to say that the Hawk doesn't just fly high. It prepares for the storm before it comes. That's what training is. That's what education is. That's what all of you are doing here. She paused and looked at the faces before her. You're preparing for moments you hope never come, but must be ready for when they do. Because when that moment arrives, when lives depend on you, there's no time for doubt. There's only time for action. After her speech, a young woman approached with tears in her eyes. "My mother was on Flight 429, she said quietly. She was the flight attendant named Maria. She talks about you all the time. She says you're the reason I still have a mother. Because of you, she was there for my high school graduation. Because of you, she'll be there when I graduate from here. Thank you for giving me my mom back." Lily hugged her tightly, both of them crying. These were the moments that made everything real. Not the news coverage or the awards or the recognition. But the lives that continued because of what happened that day. At 9,000 meters, when the engines failed and death seemed certain, a kid with a legendary call sign showed the world what it meant to honor a legacy through action. The F-22s had heard her voice. They had recognized her call sign. They had witnessed her rise when rising was required. And in doing so, they confirmed what every Hawk aviator had always known. Courage and competence recognize no limits of age when legacy and circumstance meet in moments that demand the very best that humans can offer. The Hawk had risen at 9,000 meters. And the world would never forget.